Hello from the Hashknife. Today we're feeding out butcher beef. So we'll go through the process, tell you what's going on, show you how we do it, what the plans are, and then give you some frequently asked questions.
Everybody's got their ears forward, their nose pointed this way, and they're walking up. We've actually got, of these 6, we've got 3 of them that have got a schedule with the butcher in about 10 days. And 3 of them are another, probably 6 weeks after that. And then we've got 4 more that we're going to start feeding next, Saturday, about 3 days away, 2 days away, Sunday, I guess. And so what you'll see here is an attempt to separate. We've had to get even more diligent about our separation and watching what's going on with that one that's in the lead there. See how he's going to turn around and run to the other side because he likes coming in on this other gate. I think it thwarts the other's efforts to steal his food, which is ironic because he's now been separated from the others because he's stealing food. And so this is why we're really hands-on about this. If we can see that one animal's taking another animal's feed and we're rationing them out at a certain rate of pounds per day and pounds per feeding, because it's twice a day, then we can separate that animal out and everybody gets exactly what they should get. So we got an even weight gain and they've got a good weight gain per carcass. And so this is very low tech. You can see we've got 5-gallon buckets and a coffee can, and we know how much we've weighed these coffee cans out and been kind of half scientific about it, but we're very, very close on our ability to feed each ration the right amount and get these guys so that they're fattening. Now this girl, you remember the one a couple years ago that we saved, and really we talked about this, shouldn't have saved. She's the same age as these others. Taking her to town is not really an option because you'll get nothing for her. No feeder wants her. Why would they? And because of the digestive issues that take place when a frozen animal and feet issues, and you can see that hind foot on the left side of her is a little bit deformed because of that freezing and the temperature changes that took place in her physiology and her physically. She lost some of her nose. If you remember way back when that nose peeled off, and you can see it's a little bit kind of smooshed together with the scar tissue. She lifts that hind leg up. So really the only thing you can do with her, you can't really feed her out. And I don't have the heart to just put her down. She's a perfectly good animal to feed, to eat. There's just not as much there. So we're feeding her out for someone who will want her just for hamburger. And they don't want a lot, but we'll probably be able to harvest total hamburger out for her. My guess is about 250 pounds, somewhere in there, maybe a little bit more than that. But we're feeding her out just the same, changing that from a grass fat diet to a grain finished diet to get rid of the leanness and replace that with high marbling and white fat. And for the tastiness, tenderness, it really doesn't matter that much for her as a hamburger animal because you're going to add tallow to it anyway. But I want to get more weight gain on her for folks that are taking her. Give every advantage we can to them because it is going to be really not an animal that anybody would want who's wanting steaks, roasts, that kind of thing. There's plenty there, but it's fit for hamburger. So that feeding complete. You've got 2 on the right over there, and we've set up stanchions for them so that they don't push each other around and try to steal. But even that, one of them gets smart, like that one over there in the alley who's segregated behind the stack there. I'll see him. He's still eating. Some of these guys get pretty smart, and they figure out that, oh, yeah, I can gobble my food fast and then go gobble somebody else's if I can push them out of a spot where they're eating. And then we got her. We've been calling her Elsa over the years because she was so frozen. And then we got 2 new steers here, and then we got a big dry heifer that we're going to keep for ourselves, and then a steer next to her on the far right. And then next day or so, like I said, we'll bring these other 4 in, start feeding them on another schedule. Everybody's fed up, consumed everything that we've put out for them, and now it's time to just turn them back out.
This is a great example of kind of segregation of personalities and then the whole process as an entirety. We've got 10 total animals this year that we are feeding out. That's a significant increase from what we've had in the past. So it's very somewhat complicated at times because we're feeding different quantities to different animals. One animal might have only 3 pounds of feed in the morning and then 3 pounds at night, and then the others have 5 pounds. So we're going through the whole process and working staggered timelines, which can make things more complicated. We'll have to create another kind of stanchion set for the third group, the 4 steers at the end of this feeding season for our customers. Do we care about the animals? The answer is yes. I know that personality of 130. He's a little pushy. He likes to eat things. And so he's been separated so he doesn't keep stealing food. Also behind us is a great microscopic look at the full life cycle of a beef animal. While we've talked about her early hardships as her calving season came about, then she was saved by mom and dad in front of the fire and then tubed a couple of times. You can check that video out showing how she came about. This is the end result of, honestly, cold weather injuries. There's a lot of things that we've noticed about her that we can do on another video, but overall, this is an interesting look at some of that, and then still continuing the beef feed out process with even an animal that can't really be used for steaks, but like Dad said, for burger. Then the other 4, one has a special name, and she's a dry heifer. She has not been the greatest in the world, so we just call her Tuesday, and she is going to be fed to the family, and she has a very big brisket that we look forward to eating one day very happily around the table. And then we've got with her 106. He's kind of a slow eater. And then we've got 98 and 41, 41 being kind of like a little Scotty looking steer. And so, yes, we care about these animals. I'm not out here causing any sort of pain, harm, or frankly, misery for them. We don't want that. We want them to be happy, healthy up until the very last second, and then they just no longer exist. So yes, we care about the animals and we want the best for them throughout the entirety of the process.
What is the purpose of grain finishing? We talk about grass finish, pasture raised, grain finished. What does that mean? Well, when you take these animals like we have and you bring them off of grass or off of pasture, they're pasture raised. We talk about 80% of the time being out in a pasture for pasture raised. They look very lean in the meat. The meat's dark. The fat is yellowish. If anyone who's a hunter has harvested elk, deer, antelope, or the like, that's the way that meat is. It's not very marbled. It is a little bit tougher. And if you take the amount of meat and compare it to a grass or grain fed, you'll notice that fat is white. And what you're doing is you're inducing a higher weight gain and just fat storage on that animal, kind of like they would do in the wild, where they're eating like crazy to gain as much weight so that they can make it through the winter. We're doing the same thing with a high protein feed so that it is fat storage. Well, that's within the muscle, on the outside of the carcass. And consequently, you know, we as carnivores, we love the taste of fat. We like that tenderness, the juiciness, and that's what we are trying to put on these animals so that they're much more palatable to us. You know, when you go to a restaurant and have a nice steak, generally you're not getting a grass-fed animal. You're getting a grain-fed, tender, juicy, piece of meat. Nobody wants something that's tough and doesn't taste as well. Let's say it's not gamey, because they can taste a little gamey, just like venison does if they're not finished with a grain finish. Some people like that. I don't mind it. I do want my steak to be juicy, tender, and have a lot of taste, and that's the purpose of the grain finish.
Is this a feedlot? No. But it is again a microscopic look at what a feedlot can be. These animals have had free range to the pasture their entire lives up until the last 2 months where they're being fed out. Could we let them out in the pasture? Absolutely. That's no problem. The only reason we don't is so that they can get their feed on a timely manner. And frankly, they're not really going to do anything out there anyway other than sit down, chew their cud, maybe look at the stars and the sun during the day, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, this is what a feedlot could look like if you put a larger quantity in a smaller area and made sure all the steers, heifers, and everything were being fed out the final days and then taken on to the butcher plant. But no, this is not a feedlot. This is a family-run ranch, and we are only feeding 10 animals this year, not literally thousands upon hundreds of thousands. So no, we're not a feedlot.
How long are these animals finished? 65, 70 days, somewhere in there. And what we do is we don't just start feeding a full ration to them. These guys are getting 10 pounds a day, 5 pounds in the morning, 5 pounds at night, so for adequate gain over about a 65 day. We do build in a little bit of variance there. A lot of studies have been done through like our extension agencies and our colleges that a complete turnover of fat usually takes place in about 57 days to go from yellow to white fat and get the marbling. And once that, now you're just gaining more fat, which is arguably for more tenderness, more juiciness. And so you can feed these guys out for 6 months if you wish. And I know people have done that, and they have a tenderness that's highly, highly sought after. However, what have you got into that? Your return on your investment is diminishing much past that. So we usually do 65 days, 70 days kind of as a max, depending on when we can get that convenience of us feeding them and then into a butcher. We may have to wait a day or two. Sometimes they'll call and say, hey, can you bring them in 3 days? So we build that in a little bit so we're not shorting under that 65-day limit.
How would you label this beef? Pasture-raised, grass-fed animals who are hand-fed during a grain finishing process. You can also say antibiotic-free, hormone-free, all these things. First off, antibiotic-free, it's literally a legal requirement. Hormone-free, there's really not that big of a difference to it. There was a very helpful a very helpful picture on social media that was shared recently showing a grass-fed New York strip compared to a pasture-raised New York strip. Really, the two differences is the labeling. One appeared, based off of appearance, was grass-fed, grass-finished. The other was pasture-raised, grain-finished, because you could see the marbling within that steak compared to the other. One looked more like venison, the other did not. Yes, these labels are cool. They look good, they sound good, but frankly, as long as you're getting the beef that you want, the way you want it, that's what's the most important thing. Always know who you're working with. If you can, buy local, understand who you're working with, and know what you're getting. For example, we talked about Elsa. She's going to be only burger because the consumer, the customer, knows exactly what they're getting. We didn't just blindly tell them this is what it is. We showed them, let them make the decision over a couple weeks, asked them again, are you still interested? They said yes, so they committed. Other than that, we would not sell her to anybody else. We'd keep her for ourselves and make her our own burger source.
If we sell our beef outside of the state, and we do, we have to follow the federal rules because the feds are always looking to either clamp down on what you're doing or tax you for it or whatever. And there are some food safety reasons why as well that they're there. So I can't always fault them, but we sell surrounding states, but it's not for resale. When you have a animal that you sell over the counter or as a retail business, then they need to be USDA inspected. Not a bad thing, just ensures the cleanliness of the facilities that it's being used and the cleanliness and the health of the animal. But the way we do that is we just sell to individuals. And if you want to come and pick your meat up, then we'll sell it to you. And we have people from North Dakota, Wyoming, of course, Montana. We haven't done anything in Idaho yet, but you know what? There's always a first time. So we schedule the butcher time. Butcher contacts the consumer and says, "How do you want it cut?" And we can give you some help on that, as Calen's talked about. The benefits of certain cuts, certain ways, weight differences, the amount of yield you're going to get. It's all going to change depending on your needs and your wants. But we will do that. We'll sometimes deliver within, meet you at 150 miles or so and make an exchange with the meat for cash, and then, look forward to next year. But we're always looking to sell to folks anywhere close, anywhere out of state. And those that are a long ways away, remember, buy local. We don't need every piece of meat here sold to somebody, but somebody needs their meat sold to somebody else. So buy local whenever you can.
Can customers customize their cuts? Yes. So we've talked about how oftentimes we will feed them out at a younger age than others, partly because of weight. If you let them get older, more bone growth, more weight, you're paying for bone that you're not going to consume. Some people will use it for things like marrow so that they can create their own broth and stuff like that. But that's so infrequent and far between that that's just not realistic. So we try to do it younger, and ultimately you can get the steaks that you want through us or producers like us so that you can get what you want, whether that's a 1/2 inch cut, a 1 inch cut, an 1.5 inch cut, whatever you want, however many you want in a package, how you want it packaged, what kind of cuts you want. For example, maybe you don't want all the different types of steaks, you want more burger, you can choose to do that. Or instead of asking for ribeyes, you can ask for the producer to get you cuts so that you have a giant prime rib for a holiday season or something to that effect. And again, we've always argued that you may pay a little bit more upfront in terms of bulk storage space for your freezer, but over the long run, you're going to pay less than going to the grocery store and getting your meat every single week for groceries. The other example is you might pay something to the effect of 6 or 8 pounds per pound of hamburger off of that animal, but you will also be paying $5, $6, $8 per pound off of the prime cuts like ribeye, T-bone, New York strip, whatever it might be. So the cost when you look at it, especially when you take like a ribeye, I think the last I saw a ribeye was close to $20 a pound, and hamburger was only 5 or 6. Well, when you look at that in the grocery store and that variation, but you can get that exact same cost across the steaks and the cuts and everything that you have off of animals like this. That's where the benefit is, where you can customize your cuts and how you want things butchered to your liking. If you're a family of 2, empty nesters, or a young couple, a package of 2 is probably great. If you're a large family that needs, 4 steaks per package, that's probably the way to go too. So it's all on how you want it and how you need it.
How much weight does an animal have when they're butchered? What's their live weight? How much can we expect to get out of them? And that does vary. So let's make it a kind of a simple breakdown. If we have a 1,000-pound animal that is back here behind me eating, and they're butchered at, say, 1,000 pounds, and that's, roughly pretty close. But for figuring sake, let's figure that. When they're butchered and they're dressed, feet are cut off, the hide head is all gone, and you have a carcass hanging on a rail, you're going to be about 60% of what that live weight is. You're going to lose 40% in all of the waste materials, not necessarily waste materials, but you're not going to put it in your freezer, let's put it that way. And of that, then now you've got around a 600-pound carcass, plus or minus. So when that animal is then cut into steaks and packaged, depending on how you do that, if you don't like ribs and you take all of the rib meat and make it into hamburgers so you don't have a lot of bone, you're going to have a little bit less. If you keep that bone, you like big ribs and use a smoker or barbecue, depending on your needs and wants, then that's going to be a little bit more. If you have hamburger that is like Lisa likes it at 93% lean, she's kind of honed in on that. If you can get 7% tallow in your hamburger, it fries well, it holds together, and then you don't have a lot of waste grease that you're having to deal with. Say, for instance, you're making tacos and fry that meat up. You don't even need to drain it, but it fries nicely, it doesn't stick, and you can bust it up. It'll still stay good on a griddle or even on a grill. So a little bit less tallow will give you less yield, but you're not going to lose it as you fry it. So of that 60-pound carcass weight, now you're going to get about half of that. So you're going to end up with a 1,000-pound animal on the hoof, somewhere around 300, 3.25. 3.25 is a really good, safe number to come up with as actual packaged meat. 300 pounds of meat is a pretty good chunk of meat that you got to find a freezer for and be able to store it. We're asked if we're doing this just for the money. And, you know, yes and no. We have to survive. We have to figure better and easier. Well, not necessarily easier, because this isn't easier. This is time consuming. And we have to put money into these animals to get a quality product out. But it gives us a different revenue stream and hopefully fills a niche that people, want to also fill, as far as knowing where their beef is at, where they get it, how it's consumed, how it's produced, so that for their consumption. But most people are not in agriculture for the money. It's a matter of survival, and we're just trying to do this as a different revenue stream, a different way to do it. If you figure out our labor, which, we don't make an hourly wage doing this. You get paid once a year on your animals. And so in order to be able to survive and continue a viable business for generations, we're just trying to be flexible and trying to adjust to needs and niches, and do that in a way that we can prevent ourselves from making hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's working. The agonizing part of this is trying to plan what you're going to do the next year. And we kept a few animals last year, even though the calf markets were coming up, and did come up. And by feeding animals out, I don't know that we made any more money. We may have made a little bit less money because of what we put into them. And of course, our time is never counted. But what we did do is we maintained a food source for some people who are starting to depend on our animals for their feed. So you have to take care of customers. And if it costs you a little bit of money this year because the calf prices are up in town, you can't dump your customers. You can't leave people in a lurch and looking for somewhere else in order for them to be able to put some feed in a freezer for their family. Just got done eating. We went and got some water. And now it's time to chew on a little grass, to build some cuds so they can lay around and do nothing the rest of the day. You can see they're content. They're not wild. Yeah, this guy's actually going to come over here. See if we can give him a scratch on the head, because we do that as well. They're calm enough, quiet enough, the way we work them here, that they almost they're never affectionate because they want something from you. But they're happy, they're content, and that's the way we want them right up until the moment of the butcher taking their life and making them into feed. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and we thank you till you're better paid.